This happened about 3 years ago in college. I worked at a GameStop near my school that was situated inside of a mall. Working as a young woman in a GameStop is almost as you might expect. Talked down to and flirted with, but since all my managers were grown men that were super cool and amazing, I didn't worry much at all as they shut down any issues or took the problem cases. But this one guy was a bit different of a case. It was sometime in the fall near the end of my shift with my manager. At 8:30 p.m., a guy walks in and starts looking around. I don't mind him, and since we close at 9 p.m., I was organizing the shelves and displays, while my manager was behind the counter. It was about 5 minutes when I caught sight of the guy behind me just staring at me. I assumed I was in the way and moved to another side of the store to clean. It was a decent sized store, and I moved from the Xbox section to the PS4 section. Then he was behind me again, just not saying anything or doing anything. Just there, looking at me, but not trying to look like he was looking at me. I mutter an excuse me and I move again. The PS4 stuff was in the back of the store, so I moved up front with the collectibles. It was around 8:45 and he was behind me again. At this point, even my manager noticed, but due to our store being under constant stress from our district manager, he didn't want to start an issue. I kept cleaning and ignoring the guy behind me. 9 p.m. hits and I think finally this guy will leave. Yeah, well, no, not really. When closing rolls around, we can't right up tell shoppers to leave because it's bad service, so my manager politely asks if the guy needs anything or is ready to be checked out, because we are closing soon. The guy mutters something and leaves without making a purchase. Thinking it's the end of it, we close and lock the doors and have a good chuckle about that weirdo. I start to vacuum and my manager counts the registers. As I'm vacuuming, I notice movement outside the glass storefront, and the guy is standing there staring at me. When he sees that I see him, he walks away. For 10 minutes, the guy paces the front of the store. Now I'm officially skeeved, and my manager, a soft giant bear of a man, is pissed. He tells me to go in the back. Don't gotta tell me twice. I stay by the door to hear and watch the interaction on the security feed. "Can I help you, sir?" "We're closed," my manager says with the most intimidating voice I'd heard from him in my life. "I want to talk to the girl," he said. This guy's voice was even more intimidating, despite being smaller than my manager. I was afraid for him for a second. "She doesn't want to talk to you. You have to leave or I'll call security." They bicker for a while longer about him wanting to talk with me before he leaves. After work, my manager walked me to the train station and made me keep eye contact with him until I was on the train. Apparently, the guy came back a couple times during my days off and asked about me, and my manager told him off until he never came back. I don't know if he was banned or what. Definitely one of my weirder work situations. I moved in with my dad around the age of 11, and to help keep in contact with my brother, my dad helped me create an Xbox Live account. I made plenty of friends on Halo 3 and Left 4 Dead 2 and Resident Evil 5 and had an amazing friend group that I'm still friends with to this day. The group, however, were much older than me with a few exceptions. Some of their kids were also a part of this friend group, and one of them is actually only 1 day older than me, so he and I became rather close. Overall, I made a lot of amazing memories with these people, but there was one problem. About a year or two into being involved with these people, a random person randomly rejoined the group. This person was friends with one of them before this, and the others were acquainted with this person as well, but they barely knew him. I've never been great at making new friends, as I'm awkward and I say a lot of weird things that make people cringe, but I am a pretty nice and friendly person. I added this mysterious person because they also seemed friendly, but I was rather distant, because this person also didn't have a mic. They were pretending to be a woman. When Halo Reach came out, every single one of us was on that game. We practically dominated SWAT, and this person would often join us. Communication was obviously limited because they lacked a mic, but it also made it easier for them to pretend to be female. Now I do have a fairly deep voice myself, so a lot of people, even now, still think I'm a boy when I'm playing online. So my instant thought was that maybe this person was just self-conscious, or over how they sound, or they just couldn't afford a mic at the time. So one morning, this person and I are both online. Everyone else was either still sleeping or was at work, and it was a weekday. We began messaging each other back and forth, and it started off as a normal, pleasant conversation, but then it turns dark. Mind you, this person was well aware that I was young and inexperienced in life. They started sending me sexually explicit messages, asking me to send inappropriate pictures to them. At that moment, I blocked them, and my buddy who introduced me to the group, and is well into his 30s, gets online, and I tell him everything that happened. It's obviously a little odd for such a young person to be friends with people several decades older than themselves, but they all treated me like a little sister, and this became evident when I told my friend what happened. He immediately gets defensive and starts messaging the mysterious man that he was no longer allowed to join our group, as what he did was disgusting. He put the pieces together and realized this person was 1, a creep, and 2, a liar, 3, a man. This person lied about having a mic and was caught with a mic at a few points during their time in the group. The person speaking was apparently male and then lied about it, saying that the person speaking was her brother. There was plenty of other proof people offered up, but that was one of the main ones I remember. I've had plenty of creepy experiences online, but I think that one was the worst, because that person was well aware of my age. I like playing CSGO. Usually my profile picture is a character from a movie or TV show, and my name is very generic. You would never really think I was a girl based off of my picture or name, because I don't ask for that kind of attention. I was playing deathmatch with my internet best friend Derek at an ungodly time of night, just talking about our thoughts and morals over voice chat in lobby. The server had about 7 people in it, and everyone would throw their 2 cents in with their conversation. It was pleasant and much needed. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Everyone was kind and respectful, something you hardly see on this game. One person had no microphone and only talked to us via chat. He told Derek and I've never wanted to be friends with someone over this game before so badly. Will you guys add me? I promise I'll have a mic tomorrow. I was a lonely person back then, so I accepted his friend request. His name was Corey. Derek and I played CSGO deathmatch nightly, just talking about all sorts of things. For 4 days straight, Corey would join us without invite. We found it odd that he would join us because he mentioned how strict he is with himself, about being on a tight schedule, and how dedicated he is for school. Because of this, we never invited him to our games. Which, funnily enough, Corey got upset that we didn't invite him to the games, even though he told us he was focused on school and we only played late at night. One way or another, Corey got the impression that Derek and I were dating, despite Derek talking about his girlfriend at least once a day. I told Corey, yes, we are obviously dating, because a male and a female can never be just friends. My voice was as flat as I could make it sound and as bland as I could try. But Corey did not understand my sarcasm and ran with the thought of Derek and I dating. Immediately, Corey tried his best to win over Derek by buying him in-game valuables, case keys, and a few skins worth real money. Every time he would buy him these things, Corey would tell him, "You better be treating her right, otherwise you will pay for it." Derek is a nice guy and has a hard time with confrontation, so he never replied to those messages. He would only relay them back to me. After 2 days of getting these gifts, I told Corey while in deathmatch, "Did you realize I was sarcastic with you when you asked if Derek and I were dating, right? He has a girlfriend and she doesn't play video games." His voice immediately goes into a much calmer voice during this game, and does not stop saying, "Oh, thank God. Thank you, Lord Almighty. You have blessed my life. Thank you." Random people would tell him to stop talking and that he's being creepy. I didn't say anything to him for a while after that because despite being over the internet, I felt an awkward connection with him. Day 7 of knowing Corey, he asked me to join him in a private game. I have immense anxiety with being alone with someone, no matter the circumstances. I simply tell him, "No thank you, but thanks for the offer." He then tries to call me over voice and I get a weird nervous feeling. I knew something was odd about this random voice call request. I check on his profile and he edited his entire profile to fit a 2008 emo MySpace account. He changed his picture from Harambe to right on a window, and his bio went from "I inject memes for Harambe" to "My life is meaningless without her." That was one of the most bizarre things I saw unfold in front of me over a video game. He explains to me that he wanted to play a private game with me just so he could plan a meetup with me to go get some coffee. He could tell where I lived because I told Derek and Corey about the Seattle superhero I ran into, a while back, but that was only the beginning of the creepy things he would say. At one point he said, "Your voice makes me trust you." That literally made my skin crawl. Another time in the middle of a match, he said in front of everyone, "Is your body as smooth as your voice?" That almost made me vomit. A few more examples include, "You make me want to just snuggle up on my bed and go to sleep," in some sort of cute tone, or saying tee-hee out loud, instead of just laughing. But whenever he said something creepy like that, I would just ignore it or awkwardly say, "Thanks, dude." It felt as if he practiced for hours just to say these lines to me. Super unnatural. I knew this guy did not talk to any other women, because he told me so. Girls in real life just find me creepy, and whenever I approached him, they ignore me, is what he said. Something I should have also spotted as a red flag. One day he tries to send out a call request that I ended up hitting ignore on. I message him and say, "What's up? Is everything okay?" He only replies with, "Not even close." I had no clue what to respond with, so I just waited for a follow-up message. 10 minutes passed by and he spams me with personal questions. What kind of males are you into? Do you only date tall, skinny men? Do you care what other people think? I oddly feel guilty, and I feel obligated to reply with honest answers. I tell him I care to an extent of what people look like, as long as they take care of themselves. I couldn't care less what my friends look like. I don't really have a unique type. I mean, I really just want a healthy-looking guy, regardless of height. Why do you ask? He describes to me what he looks like, followed by a total of 10 pictures. I never asked for a picture of him. It honestly never crossed my mind to ask him what he looks like. He asks me all sorts of questions related to, am I attractive enough? Am I too skinny? Too short? Do I have good hair? I tell him you look nice. He was very skinny and average height, and he looked like he took care of himself. Honestly, a very normal looking human being. He replies with, "Thanks, you are so sweet. Such a lovely girl." I don't message him back and just launch CSGO because Derek was playing. We play our game of deathmatch and talk about the normal stuff. We make friendly talk with a complete stranger, and at the peak of it, Corey joins. But he says nothing while we were all playing. So I don't have notifications on when I play, so I have to manually check my messages while I'm in game. During map change, I realized I got flooded by Corey asking, "Do you find this guy attractive? Does he sound hot to you? Is he funnier than me?" I ignore his messages and keep playing. I didn't want to deal with that from him. I only knew him for 2 weeks at this point. But then he notices that I'm ignoring his messages, and he confronts me in the front of the server with 20 people. "Why aren't you replying back to me in Steam?" I tell him, "I don't have notifications on. I'm too busy playing a game to want to hold a conversation while playing a game." Corey goes on this rant about, "I thought we were friends. Why would you ignore me? Friends don't ignore each other." And I don't respond to him. This is all over voice, by the way, so everyone can hear him. I'm clearly uncomfortable, and a random player tells Corey that he's being kind of creepy, and that she clearly doesn't want to respond to your weird messages. He ends up screaming at the top of his lungs at this guy, calling him things like a useless human being and that he doesn't know her like I do. And then he promptly leaves. Derek and I keep playing our game, ignoring our messages. After an hour, we get off the game and I open my messages. From Corey, I get a roller coaster of messages and feelings ranging from, "I'm so sorry I screamed. You didn't need to hear that side of me," to "How dare you ignore me?" I reply with, "You're taking this friendship pretty fast. I think you should calm down and take a break. The deepest thing I know about you is your name and your favorite meme. You're right. Good night." I was hoping that maybe for once, that would be the end of it and he would actually listen, but I couldn't be more wrong. The following day, I woke up to my Steam app being spammed from Corey. "I need you. I'm at a hospital." A few things I noticed. He was on Steam via web browser. Your name will have a web browser icon if you're logged in through your web browser and not Steam or phone. Another thing I noticed, he said he was on his phone. If that was actually true, it would have had a mobile icon next to his name. I knew he did not have a phone because he told me. I broke mine last month when I threw it against the wall. I remembered that because I think odd about people who destroy things in moments of anger. I don't mention either of these things to him. I figured he was lying because he was in the heat of a moment and was too scared to tell me the truth. I asked him why he was there, and his response was, "I don't know. I was puking blood all night for 8 hours, and my mom and dad took me there. I'm terrified. Again, I was naive and I let that slip. I found it odd that his parents would wait so many hours to take him to the hospital while he was puking blood. I didn't tell Corey of my suspicion, though. I wanted to see where this was going. So I assured him, saying things like, "You'll be fine, I'm sure of it." He said without a minute passing, "My parents are talking with a doctor right now and they are crying. I don't know what's going on." "Why aren't you in there with them?" He tells me he's going into the room, but he was stopped by a security officer who told him, "I'm sorry, we don't think you're ready for the news just yet. Have a seat." So I play dumb and I don't question his bullshit story. I reply, "It won't do you good to get worried about something you can't control." He spams me with broken sentences such as, "So scared right now, please help me," but all the words were spelled wrong. I understand when people are crying, it can be hard to see what you are typing, but he told me many times before, "I've been hurt so bad before, I can't even cry." I didn't even cry when my brother died. Also, he was typing perfectly clear and readable before and after this message. Again, I didn't question his story. He quickly tells me, "Oh my god, they just told me I have cancer." I respond with, "Didn't you just get to the hospital a few hours ago?" He replies, "Yes, it's stage 4 skin cancer." I didn't let him know I thought he was lying and was currently laughing. I messaged Derek about the situation and I don't reply to Corey for roughly 10 minutes. When I open his messages back up, I find him explaining to me how he got his skin cancer. He apparently got it from a mole on his chest that he cut off because it was in the way, and it got infected with cancer. I didn't think this lie could get any worse, so I confessed to him that I know he is lying. I expressed how horrible it is to lie about having cancer and that my adopted mother died of cancer herself. He rushes his response to, "Oh my god, I had no idea, I'm sorry. The reason I lied to you is because I'm actually sick, but with something else. I actually have type 1 diabetes. I lied because I didn't want you to think I was fat." I asked him if he remembers sending me pictures of himself, and he said he remembers, but he was still worried that I still thought he was fat. He probably weighed at the most 120. I cut off contact with this guy on everything the same day. Roughly 6 months after deleting him, I run into him in real life. I knew it was him because his voice was unique and distinct. Corey never saw what I looked like though. I never sent him pictures or posted on my Instagram a selfie. I knew it was him and he looked the same as he did in those photos. This was during Seattle's street fair, but I never thought I would run into him. I'm glad he didn't recognize me. I have no idea what I would have done if he did. I will start out by saying that I am not a writer by any means. For a bit of backstory, my mom was dating an abusive prick at this time. We will call him Ian. Because of Ian and the crazy fights they had gotten into, we couldn't lock up my house at all. He had kicked in both the front and the back door to the house, and they were never fixed. My mother and Ian were at the bar all day, every day. I told you this so you would know why the house wasn't locked up and where my parents were when this happened. This incident occurred when I was around 12 years old and my little brother around 10. I was a really small girl at this age and my brother was sick all the time, so he was very, very tiny and frail. My mother and Ian were at the bar as usual. When you opened my front door, you're right in the living room and you could see the back door. There was a hallway to the right that led back into the bedrooms, and that is where my brother and I were. We were in his bedroom with the door closed, playing something on PlayStation. It was around midnight or 1 a.m. and we were playing and having a good time when I heard a weird noise. My brother didn't hear it and I didn't want to creep him out. I told him that I wanted to get a drink and I told him to stay in the room and that I would bring him something. To get to my kitchen, you would have to walk down the hallway in front of both the front and back door because it was behind the living room. I kept hearing strange noises, so before I left out of my brother's room, I told him to get into the closet and work on our fort so that it would be ready when I was done getting our drinks and a snack. I raised my little brother for the most part and took care of him. I had a feeling, a terrible sense of dread. I could tell something wasn't right, and this was a way to get my brother to hide without scaring him. He frightened easily and had really bad asthma attacks, and at this time he had no inhaler or his breathing treatment machine for him. I knew if he was having an asthma attack, on top of being scared, it wouldn't be pretty. Anyway, I left the back room and decided to see what was going on. Because I was such a badass at 12 years old, but I had to protect my little brother, I started sneaking up the hallway as slowly and quietly as I could. I was terrified. I could just feel that something was wrong. Before I made it to the end of the hallway, I heard a man. It sounded like he was growling. It was a deep, terrifying noise. I can't explain it, but the feeling that washed over me damn near made me puke. So I of course freeze. I have no one in this town. I don't know anyone, and my dad is living in a different state. My mom is at the bar drunk as hell. I was sitting there trying to gather the courage to see what was around the corner and going over my options when I hear my brother's door open. He sees me and the look on my face and freezes. I remember his eyes going so wide with fear because he must have heard the growl or whatever it was too. I motion him with my hands to go back into the room and he does. I finally gather the courage to peek around the corner, and what I saw still freaks me out to this day. I saw a man probably around 6'6" and 300 plus pounds sitting on my couch with a wicked grin on his face. That grin and the look in his eyes will forever be burned in my head. By some stupid luck, the man didn't see me. I so slowly snuck back to my brother's room. I shut the door and I started going over my options. My brother was already horrified because of the growling noise this man was making. I am so thankful that he wasn't the one who saw what was out there. I mustered my brave big sister face and calmly told him that there was a big man that we didn't know on the couch and that he needed to be very quiet, and I needed him to be brave and keep his breathing in check. My brother adored me and looked up to me, so when I told him that I needed him to be brave, he tried his best. I told him not to move, and he didn't. The first thing I tried was the window, but it wouldn't budge. It was completely stuck. I'm making myself stay calm for my brother's sake, but I know what's sitting out there. So since the window was stuck, I decided to start looking for a weapon. My older brother lived here as well, and I know he had swords somewhere. I don't remember where he was at the time. As I'm looking for the weapon, I hear the man sing, "I know you're here." My stomach knotted up and the hair on the back of my neck raised. I instantly got a cold sweat. And then I hear it. My little brother had started wheezing. Asthma attack. I hugged him and reminded him about being brave and told him to sit still and focus on his breathing. I frantically started trying to get the windows open, but it was stuck. I looked around and started moving blankets when I found my older brother's cell phone that he always forgot. I remember thinking that I was lucky and I felt a bit of relief. I immediately called the police and told them what was going on. Hysterical at this point, but still remaining quiet as possible. The dispatcher told me to remain on the phone so she could hear what was happening when the man started banging on our bedroom door. It had been about 5 minutes into the phone call when this happened, and I could no longer remain calm. I lost it. I started screaming. I mean blood-curdling screaming. The kind of screaming that would send chills down your spine if you heard it. I forgot to mention that our bedroom had only one working lock, so the door was locked, but he was trying to get in and banging on it. His banging got louder and louder, and he was screaming to let him in when it completely went silent. Then he did the creepiest, most terrifying thing ever. He started laughing. "You know I could just bust down this door in about 2 seconds, right, little girl?" he said. Now he's lightly tapping on the door and asking for me to open it. His demeanor completely changed. I then heard a scraping sound at the door. What I had imagined, it was in my 12-year-old head that he was scraping the door with was his really long fingernails or something, but that wasn't the case. Not too long after, I hear the police start screaming at him to get on the ground and to put his hands up. I hear him putting up a fight, followed by more yelling and eventually silence. After a few minutes, there was a knock on my door, but at this point, I was too terrified to open it. I thought that this nightmare guy was still here, so being in my hysterical state, I started screaming "no, please," over and over again, just sobbing and shaking. I couldn't stay brave for my little brother anymore. I was on the floor holding him this whole time, convinced that we were going to die. Eventually, I calmed myself a bit, and this time, a female officer was at the door, so I opened it. There were about 5 cops standing in the hallway, listening to me being hysterical. I refused to let go of my brother at this point, but we both ran to this officer and just collapsed sobbing hysterically. It turns out that this guy was completely wasted and high on drugs. I remember the cops walking me up to him and having me stand in front of him, asking me if I knew him, but I didn't. But I'll never forget standing in front of this huge man, looking into his brown eyes that were completely bloodshot and filled with hatred. I'll never forget that growling noise that he was making, or the look of pure horror in my little brother's eyes. My parents were called and investigated for leaving us alone like that, and the doors being like that. My mom is a different person now, doesn't drink, and is also married to a cop. She's completely changed. I remember asking her about it later on, and she told me something that I didn't know. The man had a huge knife, so that's what he was scraping the door with. And he also had some rope, tape, and a tarp. I still don't know how he didn't get to us, or why he didn't just bust down the door to get to us. It would have taken one half-ass kick for him to kick the door down. It was that thin. It still creeps me out, and I have had nightmares from it. My husband doesn't understand why I get so furious with him when he leaves the door unlocked at night. I work third shift, so I'll come home and the door will be unlocked sometimes. It's infuriating because I then have to go through every room in the house and check the closets and the other places that a person could hide in. I have 2 kids, and they will never ever ever have to go through what I did. This is a current, ongoing problem. I'm young, 19, and moved states about 6 months ago, and now live with 2 roommates. Our house is built in an interesting way. The living room of the house next door to us is my bedroom. So I essentially have what used to be a kitchen, and the entire living room is my own personal space, with a wall separating me from my neighbor's house. I have 3 doors, one to get into my room from the hallway, and another that connects to the kitchen and is right next to my neighbor's other door, and the other living room door that is right next to my neighbor's front door. I'm only describing this setup because it's easier to explain how exactly my neighbor watches me and essentially stalks me through our shared wall. The issue with our neighbor, Bethany, is that she hates whoever lives in my part of the house. There's bad juju that went on between her and 2 previous tenants a couple years before me. Bethany is quite old and has 1 cat. We're not even allowed pets in the housing unit, but she's been grandfathered in. Also, has her brother over. He's a bully and a dick, and just outright dislikes all of us who live here. Bethany has another neighbor on the other side of her house, but Catherine is barely home, so I doubt she's had to go through any of what I do. Anyways, as of the last 2 months, Bethany has gotten extremely stalkerish. She doesn't follow me or my roommates, but she watches and listens. She will not start bothering me until she goes out and watches one of my roommates leave and go to their car, which she can do because she has 2 doors to go outside. Bethany's front door is the longer route and passes her living room, which she will openly watch you from. The other is connected to her bedroom, I assume, where she'll either stand on her side of the porch or hang out her window while flipping one of us off as we pass. It's very annoying, but that's all it was at first. Just petty shit, just to show that she really didn't like us. Until she started knocking. Now my wall isn't super thin. In fact, you need to be really loud to even be heard. I was already told before moving in that Bethany was somewhat hostile towards whoever lived in my room, so I should just be wary of sounds. I have 1 large TV in the corner and a desk with a computer, but I rarely use them. Bethany, on the other hand, has a TV right behind where mine is on her side of the wall. When I was home alone or getting home late, Bethany would take the time to gently knock on the door right next to mine and say in this very creepy singing voice, "I know you're home." Or if I had an Amazon package or some type of delivery back home, she would start banging the package against my door and in her creepy singing voice say, "Come out, you have a package, you have a package," over and over. She'd do this for about a few weeks straight because I was getting gifts from my family around December when this picked up. My birthday is also in December. I was also getting packages containing school supplies, home stuff, etc. But it was just chilling because she was physically waiting for me to be home. I know that the air pressure is heard and felt faintly when the very front door of our house opens, as well as the side kitchen in which I come in from, but you'd really have to be listening to know I'm coming in my room. So from December to the beginning of January, Bethany would pick up my packages from my door and just throw them at it. Not hard enough to damage them, but enough to get my attention. Sometimes she'd be really angry I wasn't answering, and others, she'd just continue being weird as hell. Our head roommate didn't deem it behavior that should get her kicked out, but she did tell our landlord, and the landlord had apparently told Bethany that she needed to quit, or next time the police were getting called, because she was disturbing our part of the property. Since then, she had limited to just screaming at us as we passed or furiously flipping me off. Whatever. She wasn't touching my stuff anymore because that's what mattered most to me. However, as the last 2 weeks, she's gotten belligerent. At all hours of the day, beginning at around 4 to 5 a.m., she'll sing loudly towards my wall. Not just at any part, but directly in front of my bed. My bed faces the wall on the other side, and it's just creepy. She'll sing shit like, "I can hear you on the phone." At this point, it's not even insulting, it's just like, what the hell is her problem? She'll bang really hard when it gets too quiet on my end and scream obscenities. She knows when I'm showering, as a few times she screamed loud enough for me to hear her through my bathroom wall. "You slut, turn the water off." A few times, she's gone out on both of her porches and screamed at me through the door. The thing she says shows that she listens to what I'm doing. Like example, I'm FaceTiming my mom one time and she said, "Turn your phone off." I'm playing video games at volume 2 on my very quiet TV, and she'll scream, "I can hear those damn video games." Even worse, when I'm on the phone with my boyfriend, we FaceTime to fall asleep. I heard her say, not screaming, "He snores too loud." It's so disturbing. Lately the noises banging and the watching have increased by a shit ton. My head roommate is a kind and gentle soul, so she's hesitant to take action right away. I'm pretty sure these little outbursts are going to turn into her threatening me, or even worse, trying to get in one of my doors. I don't believe she's been diagnosed with anything, which of course I've considered. I've met Bethany, but I really don't want to meet her at all on my own. I might punch her in the face or get into a fight, as I don't take well to being intimidated or listened to when I'm in my private zone. I'll try to keep you guys updated on her behavior. She's quite violent, as I've heard her screaming and throwing shit at her cat and brother who come by, and it's honestly just weird. Once more, Bethany, I don't want to see you alone in person, because we're going to have an issue.